Hi, we're the CATS program, and today we're going to be interviewing with Darrell, the Executive Director of the Summit County Community Partnership.
You are watching A Lifetime of Influence, presented by the Alliance for Healthy Youth and the members of CATS, concerned about teen success.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Brake. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good today.
Okay. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. So, Mr. Brake, where do you work and why did you choose your profession?
Actually, I didn't choose my profession. It just kind of happened. Um, I'm with Summit County Community Partnership. You say, what is that? That's the Drug Abuse Prevention Coalition for the county. And what does that really mean? Well, if you think about people that are struggling and have drug addictions, their lives are all pulled apart, what have you, I always like to create a vision of a pipeline, a pipe. And those people are inside that pipe struggling with addiction. But there's also people inside that pipe that are drug counselors and people that are catching them and trying to work with them to help them to overcome their substance abuse addiction and come out the back end of the pipe, which that would be called recovery. And that's where they learn to live their life without the drug addiction. Partnership is at the front end of the pipe. We're outside the pipe, but we are educating and teaching individuals, organizations, the community, all segments of the community about drug prevention, what's trending, how people can't, will not get accidentally addicted to drugs, that type of thing. We're educating them. And what we're trying to do is make that opening, that pipeline just a little smaller so fewer people slip in. And that's what we do.
Wonderful. So, when did you choose your profession?
Well, like I said, it found me. I was actually working with young people in Akron. I was doing after school programs, and I saw how a lot of young people that I worked with over the years, or as they got older, some did well and some got caught up in negative, shall we say, life behavior and substance abuse. And so I heard about a drug coalition, which was weird to me, but it just started, and, they wanted people from the community to be involved, and so I went to a meeting and found out what they were doing and liked it, and so I joined the committee, and that's how I got involved with partnership as a volunteer. But then a number of years later, they had a program where they were wanted to reach out to businesses to help businesses work with individuals in their workplace that had drug problems, and they needed to hire someone. And I was a person at that time, I had an insurance agency, I had my nonprofit working with young people, so I had nonprofit behavior and I worked for government. So I was unusual and I had experience in those 3 areas of work, and so they hired me for 2 years to start that program up called Drugs Don't Work in the Workplace in Ohio. And that's how I became a contract worker. Then I went back to being a volunteer, and a few years later, they got a large grant to work with young people and agencies that work with young people around alcohol abuse back then. And so they hired me, and that's how I got on staff.
Wonderful. So, what type of education is needed for your profession?
It takes a person who's willing to learn and has a passion for helping people. That's it. People that work in our committees, they come from all different backgrounds. Um, we have stay-at-home moms that volunteer. We have the police chief of Cuyahoga Falls that's on a committee. It just runs the gamut of people. Once they learn about the coalition, the type of work that we do, and they want to volunteer, then we have a phrase, get in where you fit in. So they look at all that we do and say, you know something, I think I'd like to do that. And so they volunteer. And that's how we get them in. That's how we recruit them. My background, actually, I came to Akron to play basketball for the University of Akron. When I was here a year, I took a class, a journalism class, and decided to change my major from business to journalism and started working for the radio station, doing sports and some other things. And because I stopped playing basketball, I learned I had to pay for school. So I was fortunate enough to get a job with UPS, which pays a lot of money. And I was able to pay for school. And so I work for UPS as a business world. Um, my background is in business management. I have a tag degree in business management. I have a undergraduate degree in mass media communications, which involves the whole spectrum of business from print media to electronic media like this. I also have a graduate degree from Cleveland State University, or certificate from Cleveland State University in nonprofit management. And so that's what I do now. I manage this nonprofit agency. So that's my background.
Okay.
Interesting.
So, what type of talents or gifts help you in your profession?
I would say communication skills, being able to talk with people. But talking with people, it's more about asking questions or the right type of questions and finding out about them and seeing how they might fit into the projects and the work that we do. So that's the big thing, being willing to talk and engage people in conversation and find out about them and see what they like to do. And then if there's a place where they could do what they like to do within our organization, there's a perfect fit.
Of course. Thank you. And so, when you're doing your job, when you're doing your career, in what ways do you work hard?
That's a great question because it's never ending. It's never ending. When you think about drug abuse and trying to stop people from getting involved, I could go to the grocery store and meet someone or see someone that I know and have a conversation about a project that we're on and encourage them to get involved, or they may tell me they know some people that want to get involved and give me their information, and I reach out to them at a later date. But I'm always on. I'll give you an example. Um, and I hope this is okay. I'm giving an example. So, have you guys ever heard about powdered alcohol?
Uh,
Okay.
I have.
So it comes in a you know what Crystal Light is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it comes in it comes in a vial like Crystal Light. You pour it in a bottle, shake it up. It's odorless, it's colorless, but it's alcohol. So I had heard about this when I was in Washington D.C. at a conference, and I was having all kinds of problems because my concern was people using that. What if young people at school started using it? How would a teacher know? 'Cause they're just carrying a bottle of water, you know, and that was really bothering me. So I was in the grocery store on a Saturday, and, I was in the fruits and vegetable department, and I saw Jeff Fusco. He is a city councilman, and Jeff said, "Hey, Darrell, what's going on? What's happening?" You know, we started talking, and I mentioned powdered alcohol. His eyes got this big, and he said, "Can you send me some information on it?" "Sure." So I went back to the office the next day and sent him a couple of pictures and short stories on it. And then here, about 2 weeks later, he called and he said, "Can you come down to the city council safety meeting and talk to him about what you sent me?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, okay. And by the way, the meeting's at 1 o'clock, but I sent you a legal document for you to take a look at, and we're thinking about encouraging our legislators in Summit County that are down at the state to pass some legislation to ban powdered alcohol." I said, "Okay, great." Well, my attorney, nothing in my background said I knew anything about law, and I don't. But people who work in a coalition, you always know someone. So I called down to Columbus and sent that information down to the state agency, and they looked at it and said, "Oh, this is wonderful. Where did you get that from?" Knowing I'm not an attorney. And I said, "Well, the law department of the city of Akron wrote it up, and they wanted to talk to me this afternoon. They said, 'Let us know what happens.'" So I did the presentation that afternoon. They asked me to come back and talk to city council that night. And then that night, Akron City Council voted on sending that document to all the legislators that supported Summit County down in Columbus. The next day, I called the state agency and I said, "Hey, here's what happened." They said, "Really? Well, can you send that document to us again?" And they sent it to coalitions like ours in all 88 counties. 6 months later, Governor Kasich passed the bill banning powdered alcohol in the state of Ohio. That's why you guys don't know about it, because it's illegal. It's banned here. All right. So that's how the coalition works. And that's the kind of work that we do. And it's everyday people that we talk with that we work with and use. I got an idea for you guys, but I gotta run it by Cheryl first.
Thank
Don't
you
put
so
you on TV if I can.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your work, of course. And do you ever work I can see that in your story, you definitely talked about this. Do you ever work more hours than your job requires? And if so, like what kinds of situations would require that?
I told that story because that's an example. If something pops up, I'm on it.
Right.
And the people that work for me, we're a small organization. There's 2 other people that work with me on staff, and then we have another person that's a contract worker. And if we had enough money, we would hire them, but because, they're a contract worker and they work 5-month contract, we renew it. But yeah, it happens all the time. Things come up all the time.
And why do you work so hard? Like, what is your motivation behind your work?
I believe that life is an adventure, and the places that I've gone and the experiences that I've had, the jobs I've have not always been something that I was looking for. It came up, and I'm a person of faith, and I pray, and I always want to know where God can use me most, or where can I work hardest for the Lord in helping everyday people, young and old. And so I wish I had time to tell you other stories, but we have an outreach to seniors. We have an outreach to veterans. I just want to help people and take the knowledge that I have and the people that I know. And when I can't help, connect them with someone who can help them.
Awesome.
So I've you talked a lot about your career. So now that you reflect on your future, and what advice would you give your past self, your younger self?
Boy, that's a tough question. I would say stay flexible. Um, I think you need to be honest and operate in character. Always searching to do the right things. You have to have some kind of a foundation that you go from. Um, and so for me, it's my faith. Unfortunately, I'm human and I falter. And there are times when I make mistakes and I do things that are wrong and I have to back up and straighten out what I've done. And so that happens, but it's the journey. It's the point of just trying to do the right thing with the right people and get them to work together with me. It's not a do it to you type of thing. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. Would you be willing to help? Can you want to come alongside? Let's work and partner together. That's why I like the word partnership. It's equal. We're shared. Everybody brings to the table certain things. And so we want to bring our skills to the table and work together for the common good for our community.
Okay. So, what would we need to do to have and keep a job like yours?
I think doing the research ahead of time, if you have a job or something you want to do, you guys, it's so much easier for you. In my day, we had to find books and stuff. You guys can go in your phone and Google, but be thorough in your research and what you're looking for. Look at it from all different angles. All right. And gather that information and then see if it's for you, if it's something that you want to do, and then take small steps. Figure out, well, what would be the first step if I want to go down that road? And take that step. And you're always evaluating. This is one thing I learned from sports, from basketball. After every game, after every practice, I always ask 3 questions. What went well? What did not go well? And what would I do differently next time? And that's how you better yourself. Well, there's probably a 4th question. What else do I need that I don't have right now? Those 4 things. If you do that, you'll always be moving forward. Even when it doesn't seem like it, you'll still be moving forward and you'll be making progress and getting where you want to go. And it's one thing that's true too, and I learned this when I was working in partnership. I shared an office with a guy from Ghana, Africa, who was working on his PhD, Lawrence Kanai. And Lawrence shared with me what they did in Ghana. And when there's something of significant importance that they're working on, they gather people together and they argue the points. They argue the good, they argue the bad, they argue all sides of the argument, and they listen. Now, it may be intense, and for someone like us looking back, we may, oh, they're having ooh, this could get ugly. It's like, but no, they're passionately pushing that point that they're presenting. When it's all over, They look at all that was laid out there on the table, the good, the bad, the ugly, and they make a decision based on all that information. That's a great way to go. That's a great way to do things. You can do that yourself. And that's what I'm saying. When you do that research, you're looking to find out. My life and my story is a twisted road. When I came out of Detroit, I was um all dream team player and I wanted to play basketball. That's what I wanted to do. I know I was gonna have to work, so I'll do business. But that's what I wanted to do. Well, the thing that happened, I went to a school in New Jersey. They won the national championship before I got there. The year I was there, we won the national championship. But there were a lot of good players there. And I came from an environment where I was the best player on the team and one of the best players in the city. When I went there, you're talking about they recruited from the whole country. And so I was a little bit better than average player. I didn't play a whole lot, but I was a contributor. And I learned that, and I'm thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna come to Akron, I'm gonna play basketball here." When I got here, I found out this broadcast journalism, that was what I really wanted, and so I switched to that, but I had to pay for school. So I ended up getting a job at UPS, and so I ended up working loading trucks. And then I was actually washing trucks then. And then there was opportunity they wanted someone to work in the personnel office up in Cleveland. And I had a supervisor who liked the work that I did. And he said, "Why don't you go interview that job? Interview for the job." Now I'm in the working a district office in UPS up in Cleveland. I never planned to do that. I was supposed to be playing basketball, you know? And I guess I was in business, but it really was like trucking, So that wasn't the kind of business I was looking for. Once I got my degree and everything, I needed to work, and there was a horrible economy, and I need to get a job. I need to work, so I ended up working for insurance, which I hated, but it paid the bills. And so I worked in insurance for a while. My wife had a passion. She was a writer. She wrote plays. And so she developed an acting team, an acting troupe. And so I helped her with that. But it's all these different things being open to change. And that's what happened.
Great. So far you've given like really good advice for us to take in, but do you have any other advice for us, especially as we go out into our futures?
Mhm. I would say, and this is a presentation I do. Before COVID, I used to speak a lot in schools, and in prisons with young people, and um, I would say, what one thing that you would like to accomplish in life? Usually, everybody has one thing. It's a career or something, but something you want to get started on. But you have to look also at what are the things that could stop you or bring you down. And make sure that you know very well all those things on both sides of the ledger, on both sides of what you want to accomplish, what it's going to take to get there. And when I do this in front of in a classroom, I start out with a marking board and I go around the room and I ask the people, 20 years from now, what do you see yourself doing? I'll ask you that. 20 years from now, what do you see yourself doing?
Probably, um, maybe just on top of my career.
What
Or,
career would that be?
research psychology.
Awesome.
I hope to be like finished up with PT school and actually working in a hospital maybe.
The governor of some state. Mm.
My.
To be like far in my career, OBGYN and a little bit of marketing and to have like a really like to establish like a family.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are things that won't this is really awesome. Um, there are things that would keep you from getting there. So you ought to always think about that. When I'm making a decision, is this going to help me to get where I need to go or not? One thing about it, if you think about it, um, gambling is something that would keep you from getting where you're going because you could get addicted to gambling. Okay. Um, Alcohol, which is trending now since COVID. There's a lot more alcohol drinking and to excess that could stop you. Assortment of drugs could stop you. Okay, overeating could stop you. That's weird, isn't it? But food can be an addiction. Okay. I don't think I've known Cheryl for a long time, but I don't think Cheryl there was a period of time when I may have talked with her, but I didn't see her for a number of years. But if you could imagine, when I moved to Akron to play basketball for the University of Akron, I'm 6'2" and I weighed 174 pounds. I can't go into the details of how it happened, but if you look at 15, 20 years later, we'll fast forward to 2002. I was 450 pounds, almost as wide as I was tall. That will keep you from accomplishing your career because I started having serious health problems because of that. Okay. Fortunately, what helped me is sometimes bad things are good things. So I went to the doctor and I had a cold. But I didn't go to the doctor for a cold. I went to the doctor because I had some tests run and I was going back to see if there was anything going on. The doctor, oh, all the tests are good, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm leaving the office and I had my hand on the door and I said, Doc, do you have any samples of like cold medicine that, because they always have samples and I would have to pay for it, so I'm thinking so. He said, oh, sure. So he had the nurse give me a little brown paper lunch bag and had a few samples in it that I could take. And so I was leaving, I said, I thought I could kick this cold by just drinking a lot of liquids. He said, what did you say? And I repeated. He said, wait. He gets his little pad and starts writing. He hands me this pad and it's an order to go get test run. He said, I want you to go get test run. I said, oh, okay, fine. I looked at my watch. It's 3 o'clock on a Friday. And he knew what I was thinking, like, I'll go later. He said, no, go now. So, oh, okay. Went to the doctor, went to the clinic, had all the tests run. The next day I was up at a shop near Rolling Acres Mall, had to get an oil change in the car, and my wife called me on the cell phone, answered, and she said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel good." "Okay." "No, how do you really feel?" And I said, "Well, actually, the medicine was I'm not sniffling, I'm starting to feel really good." She said, "The doctor called." She said, "Your sugar is so high, you could go into a diabetic, coma or have a stroke any second." He said, "Immediately go to emergency. And by the way, come by and get me." So I got the car, drove by, we went over to Akron General Emergency. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was there all day, had me hooked up to IVs, working to get my sugar reading down, and it got down low enough. And the doctor came in about 7 o'clock, and he's writing this little um, on the pad on the prescription, right? And so I said, "All right, you can give me a prescription?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "I hope it's not for insulin," because I said, "My mother was diabetic from birth and she used to give herself shots, and I don't do shots." And he was right with his back to me. He turned around and he said, "If I write it, you'll take it." I said, "Okay then." He said, "We'll try some pills first, but you're also going to have to go to diabetes center and there's 20 hours of classroom training you have to do. And you have to do that." And so I took the medication. I went to the class and learned about the disease and that it's incurable. You'll always have it. It's a malfunctioning of your pancreas because of poor lifestyle. I did it to myself. I almost took myself out. But I had a chance to do something good, and they said, "You need to go back," because I wasn't exercising then much at all. But he said, "You need to go there, start exercising." So I went to an Army surplus store, used to be on the corner of Market Street and Arlington. And my wife and I bought Air Force winter clothing. And every day after we got off work, because this was in the winter, it was in January of 2003. Every day she'd get off work, I'd pick her up, we'd run down to San Juan Park and we walked the trail. And the doctor also gave me an eating plan. You had so many calories you would eat in a day, and you could choose your plan. I choose the plan that was 1,300 calories in a day, and most people it's 2,500. Well, in 7 months, I went from 430 pounds down to about 210 pounds, just from following the eating plan and doing what I should have been doing all along. Okay. So I'm telling you guys, whatever career you're going to be in, you got to stay on top of it consistently. And you're always reviewing what could stop me from getting where we want to go. Um, and what do I need to do to get there? And don't be afraid to try things, new things, be challenged. Um, Nothing, and that's that. And then the other thing is my faith, because I can remember I knew I had failed God in abusing this body that He had given me. And there were times, there were a lot of things that I used to eat. Like my grandmother used to call me a chocoholic because I love chocolate. And I had to give that up until I lost all that weight. And it's not easy because when I lost all that weight, I had a dietitian assigned to me. And I was having my last visit because I'm down, I'm healthy, and everything is going well. And so I'm leaving, and we're talking. I'm walking out, and I said, my grandmother called me a chocoholic, and I haven't eaten any sweets or anything, and I'll never eat sweets again. And she said, "What did you say?" And I said, "I'm never going to eat any sweets again. I'm doing good just like I am." And she said, "If you try that, you'll be back to visit me, and you'll be twice as big as you were when you came. You cannot deny yourself. What you have to do is manage life." And so I find for myself, my walk with the Lord helps me to manage myself. Do I always do right? No. Do I make mistakes? Yeah. Do I fall in a hole? Yeah. Do I sometimes do some bad things? Yeah, but I always get up. You fall, you always got to get up again. And He gives you strength to get up and keep going. Long answers, I'm sorry, but
You're fine.
I just, it's good stuff.
Well, we thank you for coming and taking the time of your day to do this interview with us and for coming and sharing your stories and your advice with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching A Lifetime of Influence. A Lifetime of Influence is funded by the County of Summit ADM Board.